Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It's Friday, and that means
Front Office Friday!
let's go. Front Office Friday is here. Black Friday, indeed. Today, it's an exciting day. We had Thanksgiving yesterday, and now today, we get to burn off some of those calories talking NBA basketball. Keith, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. It was a nice, chill day. We didn't do too much. I watched a little college basketball, caught up on 14 NBA games in one day is a lot. So I watched a handful of those yesterday as well. And then just hung out with the family, had some food, and had a really good day. How about you?
Yeah, about the same. Well, I can't say I watched 14 NBA games.
I did not watch all 14. To be clear.
Okay, I thought somehow you fast forwarded through these things or like just plugged directly in like Neo from the Matrix or something like that and just learned them and then went, whoa. But no, I ate too much food as usual. I made a good dent in that pumpkin pie.
Attaboy.
Did not quite get the thing finished, but made a good dent in it. Watched quite a bit of football, and one of my dynasty leagues had our trade deadline yesterday. So negotiations were fast and furious, made a couple of moves. We'll see what that means for me down the home stretch. But no, it was a good day. Have you done any Black Friday shopping today?
Yeah, and funny enough, because I'm sitting here completely unshaven and a mess. For me, I'm in need of a new razor, so that will be a Black Friday purchase at some point later today, I am sure. But yeah, we have a international audience today. Are you seeing this?
Yeah,
Tokyo,
we got Germany, Australia.
Let's go.
Welcome in.
This Friday. I like that. Thanks for somebody jumping in there. Somebody said, "Why can't I fast forward through this?" And somebody said, "It's live. You can't fast forward to the future."
So. My daughter does the exact same thing. She's 7 and she does if we're watching live TV, she's like, "Why don't we fast forward through the commercials?" Because she's used to being able to do that.
Yeah.
She never lived that life where when the commercials come on, that's when your opportunity to run to the bathroom real quick, and you better get back because if you miss it, that's it.
Yeah, we had when Bella was little, we still had TiVo when she was like learning how stuff like that worked, and she would put on we'd put on something on a TV show, and then she would say, "Daddy, badoop badoop badoop," because remember the TiVo sound,
right.
and I was like, we can't fast forward through this. So yeah, Mexico, Netherlands, let's go.
No, that's right. The Philippines,
Antarctica.
Welcome.
I'm gonna call bullcrap on Antarctica.
Yeah, that's probably unless they're in like a research station somewhere.
Yeah.
Wait, who knows? At that point, Keith, we could say that we've reached 7 continents.
That's it, 7 continents, baby. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right, so we've got plenty to talk about in the NBA today, and where do you want to start? Because there's a lot going on here. Keith, I guess maybe we might as well just pull the Band-Aid off and get, because you've seen the Josh Giddey stuff that's been going around, all the rumors and stuff like that. The problem is I can't, from what I've seen, and I'll admit I haven't like done a deep dive on this or anything, but I haven't seen anything concrete where I feel like it would be responsible to comment on it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I've seen a lot of stuff out there where people are like, I'm not sure this is a real thing. And the team has not commented. It's been over a full day now. I realized yesterday was a holiday, but there were still people working throughout the NBA world yesterday. No major reporters have made any mention of anything going on with it. So I am not, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I hope it's not true. Certainly the things that are being alleged, but yeah. And I will also say with this too, I don't like just the way some of these things are being handled now, where like this stuff goes on social media and then people go crazy and they rush to judgment and there's no chance to even find out what things are. And I'm guilty of it too with some of this stuff too. Certainly not just in the basketball world. I need to be better about what's really happening here. But yeah, it was a little messy for sure with all this, and I'm sure if there's any level of truth to any of it, more will probably come out today as the day goes along and into tomorrow. I don't think the Thunder play today. I think they play tomorrow, so we'll have a better sense by then, I'm sure, at the very least.
And you can be sure that the NBA will investigate. They're going to look into all of this and see what's going on, what's real, what's not. and all of that. But again, we don't know the facts at this point, and so that's why it just you can't jump to conclusions, because here's the problem, Keith, is that if you jump to conclusions on something like this is the kind of thing that can stick with a person forever.
Yep.
And if you just run with it, that this is factual, that we know exactly what's going on, and this is all true, and oh my gosh, he's a terrible person and all this stuff. Look, if that really happened, then of course, yeah, you need to take care of things, and the NBA will, and the process will play out and all of that. But you can ruin somebody's life long term by going all in on just, this is true, this is factual. See, I saw something online. Let's let this whole thing play out before jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, exactly. Just definitely, it can get very, very ugly if you let it go that way with all of this. So yeah, not good stuff.
All right, let's see. C Rez said, Keith, you look slimmer. Keep it up, brother. Let's go Lakers. Keith, was yesterday like a cheat day?
Yeah, yesterday I ate whatever I wanted. That is carried over to today. I will get back at it. Being fully honest, Monday, I will start being good again. I'm going to enjoy the holiday, and I'll have a few extras that I've put back on to probably work off by then. But it's the holidays. I'm going to enjoy it. I have learned long ago through way too many diets and the like that it is, if I deny myself everything, it just all falls apart. So I let myself have it a little bit.
You know what? That's actually a great point. And I know this isn't NBA, but just in general, that, whether it's dieting or whether it's, a lot of different things that you can be working on doing in your life, whether it's dieting, it's mental health, it can be physical fitness, it could be, if your goal is to be able to run a mile in a certain amount of time, regardless of what it is, what works for everybody isn't necessarily going to work for you. Or I should say, there is no one thing that works for everybody. And everybody has to figure out what is best for them. And so that's cool that you've like identified what it what it is that you have to do, and compared to somebody else may say, I can't have a cheat day, I can't have one of those days, because then it'll turn into a month or something like that. That's something that's just important in life in general, is figuring out what works for you individually.
Exactly. Hey, I want to address something in the chat where there are a handful of people in here saying, that we rushed to judgment on Kevin Porter Jr. Well, part of that was the story that was initially given to police was very different. That story has completely changed now. If you go all the way back through, now it has changed. We don't know what the story is with Kevin Porter Jr. We don't know. Unfortunately, a lot of domestic violence victims change their story to protect those who abuse them for various reasons. We don't know that that's what happened. We don't know, did the police blow this out of proportion early? If more comes out, and it is, Kevin Porter is, essentially, I don't know if I'm using the right term, but exonerated of everything that was said to him, Kevin Porter Jr. deserves a chance to get back into the NBA. If it comes out that this was all handled wrong, and he deserves to come back into the league 100%, I will support that. But we did not rush to judgment. We commented on what was made publicly available by law enforcement at the time. There was no rush to judgment on that. Now, if you'll go back and watch, we even said on the initial show, we don't know what's going on with this, but it doesn't look good. And that's where it is, which is what we just said. If the Josh Giddey stuff turns out to be true, it's really bad and really, really awful. And I will also say this too. I don't appreciate it being made a race thing, because it certainly is not.
Yeah.
So let's not jump to
that. All right, let's get into this one. Jeremy said, happy front office Friday and happy Thanksgiving. Got to give you credit, Trevor. You were right about Minnesota. Gobert looks like a defensive player of the year. They look like full-blown contenders. I will caution this, that last year, this time, I want to say Utah was the 1 seed, somewhere around this point in the season. The Pelicans were a 1 seed at one point as well. So we are still very, very early. I'm far from taking any kind of victory laps or anything. But Minnesota has looked very good. And they're playing fantastic defense, and you got to love it for Wolves fans. John Krasinski, which I know people always think the guy from The Office, but he did a story, I want to say it was yesterday, the day before, saying, I've covered the Wolves for the last 20 years, and this is the best Wolves team I've ever seen. And so it felt kind of cool to see a long suffering fan base and franchise find success like this. I do hope it's sustainable for them, but yeah, it was cool to see, and really kind of puts in perspective. We think, man, it's been 2 decades and you haven't seen the Wolves do something like this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. To hand up, I was wrong on the Wolves to date. So far, I thought they might be the team that might miss, and I just wasn't bought in that it was all going to work. There's also a again, John Krasinski covers the Wolves for The Athletic. Another really good story about Mike Conley and getting traded to Minnesota and all that. And Mike Conley also in there. He talks a little bit in there about talks a little bit in there about how hard it was to get traded mid-season and the like. So that is that's worth checking out if for that reason, for no other. John Hollinger tagged onto it about how weird it is, that just uproot these guys and send them, packing and the like with those kind of things. So it is a little bit of a weird thing, with the way we handle trades in the NBA. But it is what it is, and they get it. Nobody feels bad for them. They make millions of dollars, but it is different where it's like, hey, you work here now, and you have to be there in 48 hours.
Right.
Like that. That's not generally how it works in a lot of businesses.
Yeah. NBA life is not necessarily real life. And trying to compare the two is not quite apples to apples. That's for sure. All right. Let's see. We've got JJ Ramirez said Miles Bridges playing in the NBA again makes me cringe. I bet NBA has double standards. Sad. I don't like. I saw people sending out the response to Miles Bridges and saying that the Hornets fans were cheering too much for him and things like that. I heard a kind of a mixed response from Miles Bridges being back. But again, like I've been saying, you kind of have to wait and see exactly what happened here. But the initial reports, as we said, the initial reports were not good on Miles Bridges. And we'll see ultimately where all that goes in terms of the new allegations.
Yeah, and given that there's a clearly open investigation, this one is a little odd. Generally, when that kind of situation is happening, the NBA stays away, and they'll a little bit put a guy on. It's not like a reserve list or anything like that. Every once in a while, they will do something towards that effect, but this one came a little odd that he finished his suspension. Remember, they gave him a suspension at the beginning part of this season for the remainder of the games that he missed. And what they negotiated was a 30-game suspension with credit for 20 games served last year when he was an unsigned player, and then they gave him 10 more this season. So what happens is he came right back as soon as he was eligible, and there was a little bit of, wow, this feels a little off considering there is this open investigation that is still going on. And the NBA and the Hornets basically said, we know, but we're comfortable with allowing him to play now. So it kind of, I guess, is what it is with this one, and we'll see. And if anybody says about, Josh Giddey and all this, there's no investigation going on right now. Right. If there is an investigation, then yeah, maybe it should be a situation where he's away from the team as well while that plays out. We'll see. This is all still, developing and figuring out here in the next little bit.
Right.
And the Josh Giddey meme, they're not gold. They're gross, guys. Like, the stuff's not funny. I mean, it's like, I
haven't seen the memes.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff out there. If I'm way too online for my own good, so there's just a lot of stuff out there that are just, I don't know. It's pretty gross stuff, considering if anything is true with any of it. The age of the person involved is it's really off. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a kid roughly that age. I don't find much of it to be very funny myself, but we'll see. What happens with this whole Giddey situation, if there's anything to happen with it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about that Greg Popovich thing. That did you see where Greg Popovich got on the mic to defend Kawhi Leonard and telling the San Antonio crowd to not boo him? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I hated it. I don't get it at all. There is a very clear line between booing a player and going way out of bounds.
Yes.
Before anybody even brings it up, yes, Celtics fans tend to go way out of bounds at times with players. They're as guilty of it as anybody, maybe even more so. But it seemed like this was just booing. Yeah, maybe there were a few people in the building that were going sideways with it, but it's happened each time he's played there. It's going to continue to happen. All he did was make it worse because the fans were like, you know what? You're right. We're not acting very nice. And then his half explanation after of like, look, I was just trying to not poke the bear. None of that felt, right to me. It felt like he was upset that they were booing a guy who had meant a lot to the franchise and he didn't want them to do it anymore. So, yeah, I don't know. I felt very, very off to me.
It seemed it was a little bit. It felt a little bit like a comment, something I would have said to my students when I was a teacher, right? Like, but it's a different relationship between NBA fans and a coach, and then on top of that, if we're going to, on the one hand, say we don't stop taking emotion out of the game, right? If a player hangs on the rim for a fraction of a second too long, in most cases trying to protect themselves, don't let there be a technical for that. If a guy stares at somebody else for a fraction of a second too long, let's let these guys have some kind of emotion. Yeah. We also have to allow fans to have some kind of emotion. Again, there's a line, just like there's a line with the players, right? If you go too far, you're going to get a technical foul. I think we have set that bar at a place that is too strict right now in terms of players being able to show their own emotions on the court. And as far as fans go, again, if you're just booing, then yeah, you're expected to do that. That's part of it, right? That's part of the whole thing. That's part of sports. But if you're going too far, if you're saying certain things and all of that, then yes. But from what I saw and what I heard, that's not what was happening in San Antonio. So I don't think it's realistic given what Kawhi Leonard meant to the Spurs, how that situation played out. I don't think it's realistic to ask Spurs fans to not feel some kind of emotional response to that, because then you're asking them to not be fans. That's the nature of fandom, is to have that kind of emotional connection to your team. So I didn't think it was right to ask them to not boo. And I also didn't think San Antonio fans were wrong for booing. It would be different if they were chanting something inappropriate or something, but that's not what was happening.
Yeah, keep it appropriate and don't ever involve the players' families that are there watching the team. They have nothing to do with this situation. Leave them completely out of it. Other than that, it's all fair game. In my opinion, I don't very much believe they bought a ticket. They can do and say whatever they want. That's not true. That's not. No. There's on the back of the seats. I know in most arenas that are close, there's the fan conduct there. Like it's fine. I don't have any problem with fans booing people. Like go crazy if that's what you want to do. Just keep it appropriate. We don't need to go over the top with the cussing and cursing. And Trevor knows I don't do it here because we try to keep the show very family friendly. But I pepper the F word in far more than I should. It's my favorite adjective, noun, and verb. But it's you don't need to do it in the arena and those kind of things, and it's just constant like that. So yeah, I think for the most part, let people boo, let them fan how they want to fan, and you can just kind of figure it out. And I always go back to I'm going to bring up a Larry Bird quote. He would say getting booed in the opposing arena is the ultimate sign of respect from the fans, because it means you've done something, and nothing feels better than when you shut them up and they have nothing left to say. And I think that's absolutely true.
Oh yeah, it's like in the wrestling world, the worst thing that can happen when you pop through that curtain is nothing.
It's nothing,
right? You want some type of reaction from the crowd, and so yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. All right, so let's get into this though. And we're dealing with so much like non-basketball stuff here today, but the Chris Paul and Scott Foster thing, that was pretty bizarre. It's rare that we've seen what was clearly an argument that wasn't just about basketball taking place between the two of them, and obviously it spilled over into the post-game presser. Chris Paul said it was something that they've met about. It was something to do with his son. I don't have all the details right now, but we've had a lot of people that have, come out in support of Chris Paul or come out in support, whatever. But it was a strange situation, and it's clear the NBA is going to have to step in here. I don't know if we see Scott Foster ref more Golden State game? Because it's beginning, like, if Scott Foster is on the crew for another Warriors game, that is going to be the dominant topic.
Yeah, and I don't know how you fix this if you're the NBA, because I don't know that just saying Scott Foster can't officiate Warriors games is easy and, more importantly, easily doable. I
Right.
do think there needs to be a conversation had where it's like, hey, you need to back off him a little bit, because we're like 15 years into this of
Yeah.
these two guys going at it. Just like somebody probably needs to tell Chris Paul, and Chris Paul owned it after. He's like, I need to be better. When it's
Yeah.
him, like, I need to be better about walking away. But clearly, these two guys, they just don't get along for whatever reasons there were. No one's ever been overly clear on what happened. Like you said, Chris Paul referenced something happened with his son.
Yeah.
And then there was meetings with him and Doc Rivers and Scott Foster.
So
And
it's more than what we've seen.
yeah,
clearly.
there's definitely more than what we know out there. So I think it's just, I think the two guys, we need to do what we can to try to keep them separated, but it's really hard. Like, there's only so many refs. The refs generally work as part of a crew, and it's not easy to say, all right, well, you got to miss, because if you're the one who's closest to doing the next Warriors game, it just makes sense that you get assigned to that Warriors game. So yeah, I kind of get it. So it's just, I don't know. It's super messy, but yeah, it's a bad look for everybody involved.
It's something that clearly somebody needs to, the NBA needs to step in and say, okay, what's going on here? Because you don't want something else to happen again with this situation. But again, like, everybody is people want to know, okay, whoa, what, Chris Paul opened that door there.
Sure.
What is really happening? What went on here? And of course he wouldn't, get into the details, which, it makes sense. But this is something that they need to sort out, so this doesn't become a problem again. Because what's going to happen, Keith. What's going to happen is, if Scott Foster's on a Warriors game in the playoffs, every time there's a call made, it's because Chris Paul. It's going to be because he doesn't like Chris Paul. He's out to get the Warriors. There's all that stuff, and that's not what you want to see. Did you think that in the moment, in terms of what was happening in that game? I don't know what Chris Paul said to him. I don't know what Steve Kerr said to him. I'm not a lip reader. But did you think that the emotions got the better of Scott Foster? I mean, I think that Chris Paul needed to contain himself. Do you think that it was an emotional response from Foster as well?
Yeah, I think he needed to do a better job of walking away after the first technical. Granted, I never refed anything more than high school level in like 4 Division III men's games when I was refereeing back in the day. So it was never at near this level. But the thing they teach you is, if you give a technical foul, you go report it to the score table, and then you walk away.
Yeah.
You remove yourself as the official from the player, because that's what you can control. Now, if the player chases after you, then you handle it the way you handle it. But yeah, he could have done a better job of walking away. I thought the Warriors probably should have had somebody grab Chris Paul quicker than they did.
Yeah.
And it just ended up, messy for both sides. So yeah, it's clear the two guys, they don't like each other. And this is going to continue to be how this goes, for however long the two of them are still around the game. And it's just going to be messy. So I would rather just see this, go away entirely with this, and then, just remove it as best you can. But you're absolutely right. This is going to come up again in a playoff series, because Scott Foster is, I know we all have feelings about him, but he continues to be one of the more highly rated referees out there. So he's going to work big playoff games, and chances are, I mean, I know it doesn't look great right now, but the Warriors will probably be involved in the playoffs. Yeah, I would imagine, when all is said and done, and then it'll pop up then again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not something the NBA wants. You don't want fans, regardless of your team affiliation, you don't want any fans looking at a game and saying, oh, well, this is going to be decided because of Scott Foster and Chris Paul not liking each other, rather than this is going to be decided by what the players do on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. And a bunch of people in the chat are with us on the technical fouls seem out of control this year. Right? The only thing I will say is that I hope to see is they generally are like this at the beginning of each year, and usually right around Christmas they calm down and they settle in. But yeah, all the hanging on the referee they're hanging on the rim stuff that the referees are tagging guys with, and the whole taunting stuff. Like, I don't know, you dunk on a guy, like as long as you don't make it physical or pick up stuff that should never be heard on live TV. But if you want to yell in a guy's face because you dunked on him, have at it. Like, yell in their face. Like, that's awesome. If I could ever dunk on anybody other than a Nerf hoop, I'd probably let them have it too.
Keith, it's and this is something that I noted when we were doing a Lakers Nation show. I think it was done on a live stream we did, but it said it feels weird the battles that are being fought. You know what? Like, why fight the battle of if you're an NBA official hanging on the rim for a fraction? I said, why focus on that? Or even like, have you noticed that most travels that get called are when it's a drive and kick, and the player catches the ball, puts it on the floor, and goes to drive? They call that travel, which is like a fraction of a second, a real quick step that most people can't even see in live action. But that is what consistently gets picked on in terms of a travel or not. And yet you've got these long extra steps in the lane and things, a lot of things that can look really funky, and those get ignored. The battles that we're fighting from the officiating side are strange, the things that we're focusing on.
Yeah, it's also weird to me. Like, we go through these point of emphasis things before every season, but it's like whatever the prior year's point of emphasis is just over. So that always feels a little odd and a little messy. Meanwhile, my BC Eagles are getting killed.
Oh no.
So that's not great. But it's yeah. So I don't know, man. It's all this stuff with the refs. Like, yeah, I would rather, like, I've always felt, if you come out of a game and you didn't really even know they were there, then that means that was a probably pretty well ref game. Because the ones that are also really starting to get me, some of these games have no flow. It can be a good game in between two good teams that's close, but there's a whistle like every 10 seconds. And it's like, good Lord, what are we doing here? Just let them play a little bit. I would much rather have a game where guys are allowed to be let play, and the players will adjust to that. The biggest concern I have is we should not be officiating games differently in minute 5 than minute 45.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a foul, it's a foul. And then I guess the single biggest thing that I wish the league would do away with, the whole, if it goes in, it's not a foul. If it misses, we'll call it.
Yeah.
Like, and I know refs say they don't do that. Bull crap. Because we all
see them wait.
We see it. Yeah, we see you wait. We see you look up at the rim to see if it's a foul, it's a foul. Just call it. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yep. And it's something that will always, frustrate fans. There's always going to be improvements that can be made with officiating, and naturally there's going to be human error. That's going to be a factor. But I think you're right. I would like to see a little bit more focus on the flow of the game. Now, that said, I don't want to talk about refs too long, but I'll say this: when you talk about, like, hey, how the rules get enforced strictly and then they get more lax in December, there was a saying in the education world: don't smile until November, because you've got to, if you are lax on a classroom early on, you're going to have problems later on down the road. So I can kind of relate to stuff getting called a little bit more tight early on in the season. Oh man,
all right, let's move on.
Let's move on.
What do we got? We got any questions hanging out there that's not ref related or off court nonsense related, and any basketball things? Let's go. Big in-season tournament day today.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about the tournament?
Yeah, we get Celtics Magic in roughly an hour. If Boston wins, they win the group. If Orlando wins, they will be in the driver's seat to win the group. There still can be tiebreakers that'll come in if then Orlando loses another game. But yeah, it'll be really kind of fun with that stuff. With that. So I think the in-season tournament is yeah, that's funny. What's funny is I used to say people would yell at me a lot, and I used to just reply with it. I would just reply like, it's just math, like, because that's really all it is with the salary cap, and people get very angry.
That's your catchphrase.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, for a while it was, because people were like, no, they can do this. I know, because I heard it on a podcast, and it's like, okay, but they can, and it's just math. So, it's I will say, today though, Celtics Magic, big game. There's a Phoenix game is a big game. I know the NBA put the clinch scenarios out there, so we're getting down to teams being able to clinch. Pacers and Lakers already through. to the quarterfinals. There is both won their groups, so now for them it's about, do they host a first round quarterfinal game or not? Because two of the teams will that get through, so that'll be fun. So yeah, I think it'll be fun. If Boston beats Orlando today, does that make Celtics' upcoming game against the Bulls a non-tournament game? It's still an in-season tournament game because it will still matter for seeding purposes in the quarterfinals potentially. So possible matchups for the quarterfinals, too early.
It's so I tried because I was thinking, oh, that would be a cool thing to talk about over on Lakers Nation. Like, here's the possible opponents and stuff. It's very convoluted still right now. It's just too early to be able to get into that. The NBA put out an entire list of all the teams that could be eliminated.
Yeah,
and the things that for the Clippers to be eliminated, 7 things have to there's 7 ways the Clippers can be eliminated. One of the following have to, of course, some of them are very simple. Houston gets eliminated if they lose. New York gets eliminated if they lose. Some things, though, like Chicago gets eliminated if they lose, or if Boston wins, or if Milwaukee and Miami win, then Chicago gets eliminated. So that's why it's hard to know or even make a projection of who's getting through right now, because there's so many different things that can lead a team to be eliminated or get through to the next round. That's just what happens when you have groups set up like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that it's only 4 games in this thing too, that is also hard, right? Because you only have so many combinations. It's, by the time we get into elimination scenarios in the regular season for the playoffs, it's like, okay, we've played generally around that point 65, 70 games at a minimum. Sometimes it's closer to like 60. But yeah, it's tough. I think there's 3 tournament days left, maybe. There's at least 2. I think there may be 3. So the Raptors have played 2 in-season tournament games, I believe. I believe everybody's played at least 2. Mahalo Stojanovic says, why didn't the NBA name the in-season tournament?
It is weird calling it the in-season tournament over and over again.
I think it's because they didn't want to put a name on it if it failed.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to have it then be like this. Because a lot of people said, well, they're probably just going to call it something like the David Stern Cup or something like that. So, and people keep saying, no, the tournament's the NBA Cup. That's just the trophy, is the NBA Cup. That's what they're playing to win, in theory, right? They're playing to win $500,000 on the player side and some pool prize for the coaches. But but that's the trophy, is the NBA Cup. The tournament does not have a name yet.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I've started to just call it the tournament, but it feels like it should have something in front of that. It feels like it should be, and in-season tournament just feels kind of blah. It doesn't have to be like the Kobe tournament or the Mamba tournament or whatever. Like, we don't have to do that. The David Stern tournament or anything. It doesn't have to be a name, but I think it needs to be something more that's got a little more teeth to it than in-season tournament.
Yeah, it'll get it named eventually. If nothing else, we're gonna get it'll be the Diet Coke in-season tournament or something in a year.
You mean like the D League becoming the G League?
Yeah,
Gatorade.
It'll become something like that down the line. Somebody said the Pacers could win the in-season tournament. They absolutely could. They're kind of the team that this is semi-made for, right? Is a team like that, where it's, this is probably not a real chance of being a title contender, but a big push. A couple people in here obviously probably just joined and said, you need to talk about Josh Giddey. We already did at the very beginning of the show. You can go and watch that after the front office show tournament. Sure. Yeah. I don't know that.
I don't know that we can fund that.
Swing that. Yeah.
We're gonna need a lot more super chats if we're
gonna do
that.
You guys better start coming with the super chats, and they better be in very large figure amounts, and not in amounts where it's like, hey, 10 billion of this equals $5. Like, we need them big in US dollars.
What would be the worst possible sponsor for the in-season tournament that would then get naming rights? I think something to do with like a sleep aid.
Yeah. Or like I don't know, like Mr. Bubbles, like toilet bowl cleaner. Like
the toilet bowl tournament.
Yeah, something like that. That'd be bad. People wouldn't really care about that.
Yeah. That would definitely be
There's bad. some things that are in the chat that are funny, but I'm not going to read them. So
Yeah,
just noted, they are funny.
They are some funny ones. All right. Well, Keith, obviously fun Black Friday so far. I haven't done any Black Friday shopping at this point. I was disappointed. So my wife loves those, like the Brewmate things, the cups.
Yeah.
And so there's one that comes out that's pre-order right now, and she really wants it and all that. So I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to go on Black Friday sale because it's still pre-order and all that. So I bought it like a few days ago, 20% off today.
The worst. Yeah. We had this was years ago, back like when TVs were big, like they took up like half your living room if it was a big screen TV. We had one of those quit working, and then it was like, man, we need a new TV because we wanted to watch Thanksgiving games and all that stuff. So we could not wait like 2 more days for it to like go on sale. It was awful. Like it was bad. And then like the TV we wanted. So yeah, it was a mess. But discount on NBA store. Yeah, there is good discounts. I can give you guys a little hint, but don't hold me to this if it doesn't work. The last couple years, they've done like 30% off during the day, and then they've done like a 3-hour window in the evening time on Black Friday, like when the games are being played from like 7 to 10 or 8 to 11, where they've bumped that up to like 50 or 60. Ooh. And sometimes if you're looking to cop something for your team and not like just another team or just some general NBA stuff, sometimes the team sites have better deals than the overall like Fanatics deal. On the NBA store, so check that out too.
Good to know,
because sometimes you can get a little bit extra off. So yeah, there's a little bit of NBA gear I've had my eye on that I may go pick up. But we'll see.
Good to know. Enjoy some shopping, everybody. I think we'll wrap things up about there. So it's a weird show today, Keith. We had a lot
started off a little testy.
Yeah, a lot of kind of outside the line stories to talk about today. But as always, a ton of fun coming on here and chatting with you guys, and we really enjoy doing these shows. So appreciate all of you for
do this question real quick because we didn't talk about this. Janos Zabo says, does Memphis have to waive the 2 guys they added today on the hardship after some guys are back? Yeah. So what happened with hardship? They changed it in the new CBA. It kind of formalized what was a change that everybody was pushing for, which really is one of the good changes that grew out of COVID, I guess, is if you use a hardship exception, the player you sign with that, it's automatically a 10-day contract. Mm-hmm. So there's no more like you got to sign them to the rest of the year because 10 days aren't allowed yet. So yeah, Memphis is going to add Shaq Harrison. And who was the other guy? Do you remember?
Oh, it was
killing me. Jalen Noel.
That was it. Yep.
Yeah, so we're gonna add Shaq Harrison and Jalen Noel on 10-day contracts for the hardship. Yeah, and then what will happen is if guys return in time, they'll have to waive those 2 guys if they get back to enough guys. Mm-hmm. But they're like 6 guys out before you get John Morant, who doesn't count towards this. He's like a whole other thing. So with this, so yeah, Shaq Harrison and Jalen Noel. A couple more guards coming in, and they needed a couple more guys that could handle the ball and create a little bit of offense on there. So not only are they joining the Grizzlies, I would expect them both to play as well because Memphis needs healthy players on the court.
Yeah, they definitely demand that team.
Glad that. Thank you, Janos, for bringing that up. We appreciate you.
For sure. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show over on YouTube if you have not already. Hit that like button, and we will be back on Monday with some more NBA basketball. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy some shopping today, some football, and some basketball. And we'll be back at it on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Till next time. See ya, and stay safe.